Reciting a hadith from the book الشمائل المحمدية Imam al-Tirmidhi rahimahullah, and I take a few hadith from a chapter or a few chapters every night, and inshallah we'll kind of complete reading different hadith from the different chapters over the next maybe 2 weeks or so. And tonight the chapter is Bab ما جاء في قراءة رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم, the recitation of the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام, of the Quran specifically, right? So a hadith that kind of give us some idea of how he recited, and this is a very beautiful chapter, wallah, and I'm going to share with you 3 hadith that are short and nice, and inshallah you'll find them enjoyable. قال حدثنا قتيبة بن سعيد قال حدثنا الليث عن أبي مليكة عن يعلى بن مملك أنه سأل أم سلمة رضي الله عنها عن قراءة رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم فإذا هي تنعت قراءة مفسرة حرفا حرفا. So in Salama, in this hadith narrated also in collection of Abu Dawood, with a reasonable chain narration, she was asked how was the qira'ah of the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام, and her response was كان يقرأ قراءة مفسرة حرفا حرفا, meaning you heard every single letter. It wasn't the words that you heard the letters when he recited عليه الصلاة والسلام. And this is how this hadith is used to define tajweed, by the way. Like when you sit, when I sit and I talk, and we do go. Someone's going through an ijazah and they're reciting to me. I tell them that what you're reading to me are not the words, it's not the verses. You are reciting to me the letters. You are reciting each letter. I need to hear each letter the way it's supposed to be said, in the right movement of the mouth, with the exact right enunciation. Your tongue has to be in the right place because I'm listening to letters with you. I'm not listening to words or verses or surahs. I'm listening to letters, and because that's how he read alayhi salatu wasalam. He would recite in a way where you could hear everything. It was very clear when he recited sallallahu alaihi wasallam ajma'in. And I think that's something that we should continue to try and teach and learn. It's a beautiful description. قال حدثنا محمود بن غيلان قال حدثنا وكيع قال حدثنا مسعر عن أبي العلاء العبدي عن يحيى بن جعدة عن أم هانئ رضي الله عنها قالت كنت أسمع قراءة النبي صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم بالليل وأنا على عريشي. So Hani radiallahu anha was one of the sahabiyat, and she lived close to the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam's house, and she said, I would be on my arish. Arish, if you go back to the Middle East, you know that they would always, in front of every house, they have vine. Basically vines, and because they become very thick, they can basically be a barrier between you and your neighbors, and you can sit. And ladies, we used to use the arish as a place where they could sit, and they wouldn't have to put their hijab on, for example, and they can see the night, and the arish is basically the vine, is keeping a little bit of a barrier between them and the eyes of their neighbors. So she would sit on her arish, and then she would hear the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam reciting the Quran during the night, during his qiyam alayhi salatu wasalam. Hani'an laha, wallahi. And how lucky is Hani that she got to sit, and just at night, instead of sitting there quietly with a cup of tea, she got to sit there and listen to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam reciting the Quran at night for as long as he would alayhi salatu wasalam, and she could hear him. He would recite in a voice that she could sometimes hear. Radiallahu anhum. The final one, and this is probably the قال حدثنا محمود بن غيلان قال this is it, right. حدثنا محمود بن غيلان قال حدثنا أبو داود قال حدثنا شعبة عن معاوية بن قرة قال سمعت عبد الله بن مغفل رضي الله عنه يقول. So this hadith narrated by Abdullah ibn Mughaffal. يقول رأيت النبي صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم على ناقته يوم الفتح. Abdullah ibn Mughaffal tells us, I saw the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. And this is this khatir will become too long, but this is one of those moments. And you have these moments in the seerah and in the hadith of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam with the Sahaba. They remember these moments, and they talk to us about these moments, and they give us this historical event. And Abdullah ibn Mughaffal remembers on the day of Fatih, when the Prophet ﷺ entered Mecca again, but he entered this time, and he was not afraid, and they weren't trying to kill him, and they didn't have the ability to do it anyways. And after 20 years of jihad, he came back to his hometown عليه الصلاة والسلام فاتحا. قال رأيته دخل على ناقته يوم الفتح. He entered Mecca on his she-camel on the day of Fatih. وهو يقرأ إنا فتحنا لك فتحا مبينا ليغفر لك الله ما تقدم من ذنبك وما تأخر ويتم نعمته عليك ويهديك صراطا مستقيما وينصرك الله نصرا عزيزا. قال فقرأ ورجع. رجع means he recited it as he was coming in. His head was down, stuck on the mane of his horse or his naqa. And he's reciting these verses out loud with his voice, alayhi salatu wasalam, doing tarji', meaning he would recite and then repeat again. يعني if you like listening to the Quran مجالس الترتيل, يعني similar to what يعني الشيخ المنشاوي or Sheikh Abdul Basit, يعني Abu al-Ali al-Sha'awi, they would sit there and people around them and they would recite and go back and recite and go back a couple of times, kind of perfecting the lahan, perfecting the rhythm, making it sound nice. So the Prophet ﷺ on his horse entering Mecca, he's reciting Inna fatahna laka with his voice ﷺ going back and forth, repeating the verse multiple times, giving the wudu, changing the rhythm every time. يقول وقال معاوية بن قرة, Muawiyah, who is the tabi'i who heard this hadith from Abdullah, Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Mughaffal. He heard it from him. يقول لولا أن يجتمع الناس علي لأخذت لكم في ذلك الصوت أو اللحن. Said if it wasn't for the fact that I fear that if I start doing this, people start coming around and asking, I will recite to you as Abdullah recited it to me, as he remembered it from the mouth of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam ajma'in. Like I'll recite it the way Abdullah did it. It showed me the Prophet alayhi salatu wasallam was doing it, but I fear that I do that. I disrupt the halaqat that are happening in the masjid and people come running over to see what's going on, so I'm not going to do it. But if it wasn't for that, I would show you how he did it alayhi salatu wasallam. And a lot of what you find today, when you go and listen to these great reciters reading the Quran and going back and forth and taking time, they learned this from, this is something that was also handed down. It was passed down, these recitations, these methods. If you think about it, how many methods are there to making adhan? How many different rhythms are there for qira'at Quran? They're not that different. They're all quite similar. They were all inherited from him, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam ajma'in. One way or the other, it came to us through him, from him, alayhi sallam, that this is how he kind of did it. With some variations, the human experience will add some variations here and there, but the essence of it is still the same. And he would enjoy, this is what I miss. I miss this. I can't give you this. I can do quite a number of things for you in this. I can't give you this. I don't have the voice for it at all. If I want to do tanfir min deen Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I will call you all and I'll sit and try to recite the Quran like they would, and then everyone would leave and go to a church or maybe leave. It's not going to work. You need someone who has the right voice. But we do have them. We just don't encourage this art. It's an art. It's an art. Wallahi, it's an art. And if you have not enjoyed it in your life, then there's a piece that's missing for you. Like if you have not sat down and listened to Shaykh al-Minshawi, taking the verses in Surah Al-Hashr, and just play and just majestically repeating them with each rhythm and putting the emphasis on every specific words as it goes along, then you have not learned to enjoy the Quran yet. There's a joy in hearing how they did this, because this is not something they made up. This is something that was inherited. Majalis al-Quran, these date back to his time, alayhi salatu wasalam. These date back to his time. Now, there are certain things people will disagree. Did it happen during the Prophet's time? Did not happen? I don't want to argue with you whether they sat and they did dhikr together or not. Whatever you want to believe is fine by me. But they did this. They did this. They sat and they recited and they listened and they enjoyed it. And the tabi'in did the same thing. And I miss that piece of my life. I miss it. I don't have it anymore. We had someone in this, that could have done it, but then he left the city. Subhanallah, we didn't. But we have to start encouraging those who have those voices to learn the Quran, learn the rhythms, and learn how to tajweed and do it, so that we can sit and listen. Instead of me running my mouth for an hour, bring someone who just takes these verses that we recited and just reads them time and time again. Tahbir, just making them to the point where we absorb them. You absorb. You don't need someone like me to explain them to you. You'll absorb them on your own, because Allah's words are more powerful than anything else. And you need to have that joy of listening to those words. And the Sahaba, they felt that with him, alayhi salatu wasalam. They felt his joy when he recited. They felt his passion when he read. And they enjoyed listening to him. And they did the same. They did the same in their lives. And we've missed that. We don't have that anymore. And I really wish we could find a way to do it. I don't believe in calling people from overseas to come and do this stuff. I don't see the point of doing that. I think these things are easily built locally. Easily, you can educate people and you can teach them, but you just have to have the interest. We have to, as an ummah, have the interest again in the Quran, in reciting and listening. Because a qari is not going to be able to recite if he doesn't have people who want to listen to him. Like we need people, someone who can read it well, but I need people that will sit and listen to him well and enjoy just listening to that. And that's both of them is something I think we should work on. I'm trying. I haven't. Inshallah, maybe we'll be able to do it. I'll recite this last hadith because I think it's beautiful. قال يروي الإمام الترمذي في جامعه بسند صحيح عن معاوية بن قرة قال سمعت عبد الله بن مغفل رضي الله عنه يقول رأيت النبي صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم على ناقته يوم الفتح وهو يقرأ إنا فتحنا لك فتحا مبينا. قال فقرأ ورجع. قال وقال معاوية بن قرة لولا أن يجتمع الناس علي لأخذت لكم في ذلك الصوت أو قال اللحن. صدق رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. لا إله إلا